like, I actually think this is the number one thing that's holding people back from doing videos. It's because they give a shit about what other people are going to think about them. There's so much leverage in something like content and media. It's a way that you can essentially have 500 conversations while only having one conversation. I actually think with how much there's been this kind of rush of quantity, I mean, more and more people have been jumping on video. It's growing at a ridiculous rate that, you know, the average person sees like a bajillion messages fly across their phone. Now, the opportunity in 2023 going forward is
So in 2019, Conor was an early employee at Zillow for over a decade. He's worked with some of the most successful agents and teams across the country. And then in 2020, Conor actually started making videos and learning firsthand how a personal brand can create professional opportunities. Conor, I was curious because I've heard you say a quote that personal branding. Oh, what happened?
No, I don't know what the quote is. I want to know what the
I
quote is.
heard a quote that personal branding, everyone has one, but it just depends if you're using it. And what does that mean to you?
Cool, love that. Because I feel like I said something very similar or along the same vein the other day, in that we all have relationships, right? So like whether it's, you know, close friends, colleagues, etc. Let's just look at this formula of you have the number of people that you know and know you, and the depth of those relationships. So that matters as well. And that kind of equates to this relationship equity, or what some people call like a personal brand, or what used to be kind of called reputation, or in real estate is sphere of influence. But basically everyone in the world has relationship equity. And when you think about it real quick, to not digress too much, but like if it's the restaurant owner, then maybe you get hooked up with the cool seats in that place. Or if it's some other, you know, contact that you know, or at a whatever charity or business, then that can open up opportunities for you. So there's real value in our relationship equity. So the use it, not use it piece, I don't know if I fully agree with it. I think the point I understand is that we all have relationship equity, and we actually can, to me, the opportunity now in 2023 and beyond, we have more resources and abilities to actually add to that relationship equity or invest in our relationship equity more than ever before. That to me, it's exciting. Some of the biggest businesses today, I think, are built on that relationship equity. So I really agree with the quote.
Yeah, and I think
there's a lot underneath.
If we just look at some of the people who are doing it at like a real high level right now, like you have Mr. Beast and you have Logan Paul, who a little controversial what's going on with him, but they've been able to build something off of their brand and actual tangible businesses. Now, Mr. Beast being over several $1 billion in value. I was curious because a lot of times when it comes to like video, personal brand, a lot of people, me, myself included, like I'm an introverted person, and I found that you're actually introverted. Is that correct? Or you would label yourself?
Yeah, it was just on a Zoom call before this where I broke it into a percentage of 80-20. I believe I'm 80% introverted in that, and the way I define this matters also, right? So like I do like going out, mingling, meeting people, networking, socializing, the 20-25%, but it takes a lot of energy for me. Like it's almost like, you know, exhausting in a way. I have to go home or to my hotel room and recharge solo, or have kind of like minimal like stimulation. But I do like the high stimulation, just in, you know, certain doses. So yeah, I very much identify with being more introverted, you know, than anything.
Nice. I was curious, how's that helped you with like video? Like actually, because people think being introverted is like a crux. It's a problem with them being on social media. Have you found it's helped you, and how so?
Yeah, the ironic opposite is this influencer that I was just speaking to like 30 minutes ago was saying they believe that most people, most creators and people online actually are more introverted than not. And you know, there's different theories. My lightweight guess is, and to answer your question, or maybe just more tying it back to my personal experience, is that like it's a little bit easier to kind of like do the video and then like log off or check out and do your thing. But like there's so much you know, leverage in something like content and media, and we can get more into that, but it's a way that you can essentially have 500 conversations while only having one conversation. So to me, it's like an introvert's dream. Like imagine getting 500 the output for the same amount of like social energy that it might take you to go to a party and shake hands and take down numbers and send them DMs and all that kind of stuff. So like I've done all that for years. Like I look, you know, young as F, but like you know, I love telling this story. You probably heard me say this in Clubhouse, but like I remember communicating with brokers with a fax machine in 2009, like offers and details and things like that. And so like this to me is just, you know, the evolution of the way communication has changed. And I'm, as an introvert and just as a business owner, as a human, I think it's really empowering and exciting.
I agree. And it's crazy to kind of think of it like that because, for example, for me, I'm someone, if I'm out, let's say at a party or with a group of people, I'm the person that's more in the corner. But then the people who are around me, the people I start to build relationships with, I'm way more talkative to. Like, but you put me in a
Yeah.
setting of 100 people, then I'm kind of like, a little off on the side.
Yeah, and to me, I actually feel like that's I think I know you and I are both Hormozy fans, and so just now sort of regurgitating what he has said on this. But I think as people get older and as people, you know, as time gets more limited, or they have more opportunities, or they've, you know, more focused goals, like that just kind of inherently happens. Like it's like, you know, maybe more bluntly, it's like I don't have time to like talk to a couple of the bros about this or a couple of people about that. Like I'm pretty interested in just a couple of things, and you know, I got 4 crazy kids. Like I pretty much just have to prioritize with the few people that, you know, I align with. So I think that stuff's you know, common. And maybe just on the topic of alignment, real quick.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are watching on or listening on audio, but for anyone that catches maybe the YouTuber, but we unplanned wore matching shirts, and so that's how aligned Andrew and I are.
Yeah, we're just
Unplanned,
thinking on the same
identical
wavelength.
matching shirts. Completely, completely.
So it's kind of interesting because you brought up like your kids, and I've been watching you since like 2020, I would say, and there's kind of this drive that I've seen, this level of ambition, and at least from what I've seen from other people and what I've learned over time experiences, like personally, as a kid, I was a little more overweight. I had a little more drive to get more in shape, fit, and I was bullied more as a kid too. And I think that kind of put a chip on like my shoulder. It's like everyone always doubted me. And I was curious because I feel like I see a chip on your shoulder, and I was just
Totally.
I was curious where it came from.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how similar sometimes the stories might be, even though on opposite sides of the coin. So when I was young, this is definitely where the chip comes from, and I've thought more and more about this as I've gotten older. But like, I've got if you know the movie Rudy, the Notre Dame football player, Rudy Rudiger. He's
Yep.
kind of this underdog football player that's like, you know, 80 pounds, like 4 feet tall, that kind of like walked onto the team, was getting beat up, made fun of. And this sort of like hero's journey I've identified with, because when I was younger, I played every and all the sports. I love sports to this day. But I mean, I'm telling you, I like was like I don't think I hit puberty till I was like in my 20s. Like I was like in Pop Warner football, they called it the older, lighter like qualification like I would try to get on, I basically had to put rocks in my pockets and soak my jersey in water just to weigh enough to play the sport. So like I've always been this like kind of underdog, told I'm too small, like told I can't do that thing. And I've probably held on to more of it than in actuality now into my adulthood is necessary. But that's for sure where my chip comes from is like, rooting for the underdog that's, got the odds stacked against them.
So I was curious, diving into that a little bit more. It's like, what did that force you to kind of go through? Because I feel like in a similar situation of me, it kind of forces you to like grow up. Like I feel I have a little more ability to be empathetic or have a little more emotional intelligence because I've gone through that trial and tribulations at such a young age. And because I've worked on it, that's another thing. I was curious, did that force you at a young age to like grow or go through anything different?
I mean, I don't know if I've done as much like reflection and working on it as like probably could benefit from, but I could tell you without a doubt the parts that I like is, I mean, it's just made me, thicker skinned and more durable as I've gotten older to handle the setbacks or challenges or whatever. I mean, we kind of are bouncing in and out of the topic of video, but like it's amazing how many people I speak to where like I actually think this is the number one thing that's holding people back from doing videos. It's because they give a shit about what other people are gonna think about them.
Yep.
And so like having to go through, like you said, the bullying and already a lot of that and developing thick skin, like that I'd say felt like a much easier transition for me. I mean, I definitely had my insecurities, have my insecurities, which we can go deeper into, but it's like I think it's helped me develop a little bit of that thick skin and kind of tough mindset that's needed to persevere, through any sort of hard times.
Nice. Yeah. So walking into that insecurity and moving it towards video, because if I were someone starting at zero all over again, which I do feel like I am all the time with video.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It's good. It's a good mindset to be like the white belt student mindset.
Yeah, because it's like you think you learn and you're like, wait a second, I need to get way better at hooks because my videos suck. What if I was starting at video again and I had all these thoughts on like, because here's the thing, you could give them a script, you can give them exactly what to talk about, you can give them what to say the first line, here's the bullet points, etc. We're still going to have that level of insecurity. What would you tell someone like that, or how would you help them walk through that?
The insecurity one is easily the toughest because I think it's so nuanced and to varying degrees per person. Like I at least want to start with the answer on like I went through what I consider a multiple year journey from if point A was like, okay, I see the opportunity with video. I believe it is valuable. I can see how it can open up opportunities for a person and a business. And then point B is like actually creating and posting videos on a semi-consistent basis. That took me multiple years. And so, and that was just going through the like, the what ifs and hearing other people tell me and getting past these insecurities. So like the first thing I want to acknowledge is like, it's okay if someone is on that journey and they're still only 6 months into a 2-year journey. Like I think, but I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like, there's this book behind me that's one of my favorite from Simon Sinek, Infinite Game. Like I'm always quoting that one. And to me, videos is not like this trend of NFTs or, closing window where you can get it or not. And like, to me, it's like this, if you almost zoom back even from videos and go back to that fax machine story I mentioned, like it's just, are you going to continue to evolve with the way that communication evolves in whatever way that you can? And I think it's okay and by the way too, sometimes people think of, well, then I got to be comfortable with posting on social, or I got to do this or that, or there are a million ways actually. Like if you're not comfortable putting your face on video, like there are plenty of people who do sort of like vlogs behind the scene, voiceover. You never even see their face. So what I'm getting at is like, there are ways to still evolve with all these changes, but maybe not in the difficult way that whoever's listening right now might assume. So that's one of the first things is like, look at just like changing with the time here of communication and find what works for you, even if that's one-to-one text videos or it's videos that don't have your face in it. So like, again, I think you can constantly learn, and then just like you said, a few years later you'll pick up momentum and you'll still feel like you're learning every day. But the other half of it, I guess this is maybe again not the answer you're really looking for, or listeners really looking for, but like, if you're just not ready, you're just not ready, and like, don't do it. Like, don't force it. Like, I think one of the bigger mistakes that people will do is like, they'll kind of like, they'll just throw a bunch of awful videos at the wall because someone told them videos are the way, and then now they've borderline maybe made their brand look a little bit sloppy, or maybe they lost confidence in their ability, or like all these different things that can kind of be a sort of a step backwards in some ways. So like, I think it's okay if you're not ready to not do it, and to be intentional, and to be mindful of the steps you're taking and how you want to go about it. Last thing I'll say on this is, that helped me a ton was the who, not the how. So sometimes people get really obsessed on, what's the editing software, what's the script, like what's the magical video that's going to help me go viral. And sometimes it's none of that stuff. Like, there's a million caption apps to use. There's a million like virtual assistants to outsource or whatever it is. Like, to me, it's about who do you need to surround yourself with. Maybe it's a local videographer. Maybe it's a strategic, content producer. Maybe it's an accountability Tom Ferry coach, like whatever it is. Like, I think that to me served me the most is when I surrounded myself with the right people that would put me in a position to actually execute and implement, versus me trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, and it's crazy thinking back like 2020, 3 years from now where this is recorded, even the apps like CapCut, Descript, like which make it infinitely more easier, were not around back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it'll continue to change. I mean, all the AI stuff that's coming, and it's just gonna evolve even faster.
And to go back to your point too, is like, if you don't want to go on video, there's obviously always podcasts and audio, and then there's written email newsletters. And I know we kind of are both in the same circle with a lot of real estate people. Let's talk for a minute real quickly for that agent that knows they want to, they know they do, and they just want to get started. What would your advice be to them, and walking them through? It's like, hey, let's get them off the ground a little bit.
Cool. That avatar is sort of my favorite. Like, they're emotionally ready. Maybe they've even tried throwing stuff at the wall, and they're not, too like emotionally upset from some of the lacking traction, and they just want to figure out the tactics. So let's get into some of the tactics of this. I actually think with how much there's been this kind of rush of quantity. I mean, more and more people have been jumping on video. More and more industries have been throwing out video content. It's growing at a ridiculous rate that, the average person sees like a bajillion messages fly across their phone, every single day. That I think now the opportunity in 2023 and going forward is quality first before quantity. And when I say quality, I don't mean some sick neon light and like in the background, or some like captions app that makes your font bold, like, Hormozy style. Yep. I think what quality is like something that grabs your viewer's attention, holds your viewer's attention, creates some sort of emotional connection, or some sort of a, line to a next step, which is basically a meaningful business outcome. So like, I think it's cute when people go viral or they get lots of views, but a lot of us at the end of the day want to get business results. So getting back to like the tactics of this, I think focus on the quality, which means a strong hook that grabs the viewer's attention. And and so how do you do that though? Okay, so if I'm like, okay, I want to make a strong video. How do I actually create a strong
Yep.
hook? So I think here are a couple of steps I recommend for people. Actually block off time, like 30 to 60 minutes, to write down 10 minimum, 10 minimum hooks or ideas. So before you even create a video, actually have like the creative planning time. I think Mr. Beast's team comes up with like hundreds of thumbnails before they even create the video. It was always backwards to me. I thought people created the video and then came up with some sick thumbnail, but it's the opposite. Like that's the some of the top creators will come up with the idea and then actually build off of that. So spend time coming up with a strong idea that isn't, you know, it isn't what everyone expects from the typical realtor person in your position, isn't, you know, boring or slow, and, you know, is maybe kind of a different angle. So the pattern interruption isn't easy, but I think if you spend time creatively coming up with that idea, then you actually can execute and shoot it, and then take a moment to reflect what worked well. Did that get a lot of engagement? Could I have done the hook better? Could I, you know, compare it to other people's who did similar but better, and then iterate on that for the next one. So I think slow down, be really intentional. But last thing I'll say for that, again, that agent who is emotionally ready, just wants some of those tactics, is but still hold yourself accountable to some sort of a cadence or frequency. I like to go to the gym or brush my teeth every X amount of, you know, days or whatever it is. And so that's like same thing. Try to give yourself a cadence that you can stick to, but don't not on the side of like post 9 times a day. I think that, you know, Gary Vee went hard on that years ago when there wasn't a lot of video, but now I think the opportunity is in intentional quality.
I agree. And I want to go into the psychology, the emotion side, because I've heard you talk about it. I think a lot about psychology. I want to get into that in a second. I do want to break down a little bit just for the people who may not be as in the game and always looking at, because if I'm someone, let's say brand new to video or just learning video, and I'm like, what's a hook? Well, what's a good idea,
Yeah,
bad
hooks
idea?
and scripts and all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So,
totally, completely.
so I want to break those down separately because they are completely separate. When we think of a good idea versus a bad idea, could you walk me through, like, I guess first it would be easier to do a bad idea and then a good idea.
If it's okay, I'm gonna start with good idea and work my way all the way down.
Yeah,
So
that's
like
fine.
good at the very tippy top, like drives the most desired outcome you want to happen. So like maybe if we're talking to a realtor, it would be like a homeowner DMs you and says, I want to buy or sell a home with you, right? Like that would probably be like an example. So I think having that clarity in mind first is important, because sometimes people might optimize for, I want to just pull my pants down and get a bunch of views or what, like, but is that going to get you the meaningful business outcome that you want? So I think the clarity on what is it you're trying to make happen matters first at the top. But then I think the second sort of layers underneath that of what make a good video are, does it grab your viewer's attention? If you think about the typical viewer's behavior, they're doing this, they're scrolling at light speed, and you have to somehow halt their scroll, somehow grab their attention for like 2 or 3 seconds, which is incredibly difficult to do. So that's the second layer that makes this a good video. Is did you grab their attention? And then the third one is kind of like, did you hold their attention? So were you so let's say you had some, and by the way, the first 2-3 seconds, to because you brought it up, that's the hook. So that's where I would spend 80% of your time. And maybe if we want to give a couple examples of hooks, I can quickly go into that. But after the hook, after you draw them in, then you if you're saying something like, I've been in real estate for 19 years, my name is Conor Patrick Murnane, boom, you're dead. Like they just scrolled right past you. So you have to get to your point. You have to tell your story. You have to get to the ending, really all in like 30 seconds. So did you Did you draw them in with a hook? Did you hold their attention? Was it in line or in alignment with your actual business goals? And then sort of the last thing, as you reflect post game, did you achieve that? Did you get any sort of like engagement? Did you get shares? Did you get DMs? Did you get conversations that could be good indicators leading to those business outcomes? And then cut me off if I'm rambling too much, but like I want to hit on what you said with like some of the bad ideas. So, and then maybe end with a couple of like hook examples.
Yep.
But so bad ideas are, I think, number one, if they're like, I'm trying to think of what the opposite of pattern interruption is. So like super just like predictable, right? So if you just look like and sound like and feel like every single other real estate agent in my feed, you have no chance. I'm going to scroll right past you.
So I think I can give you an idea. It's like, for example, a lot of people say, oh, here's why you need to get pre-approved before shopping for a home. How many times have you seen that video, for example?
Yeah, totally. A million times. Or like this is why it's a, and maybe this isn't awful, but like telling people it's a great time to buy or sell, contact me. Or like follow me for this, a real estate market update. I can get into some creative angles on that, but like that one's really, really, really hard to do in an effective way. So like, if I think the broader answer to give, to answer like what's a bad video is, does it look like and feel like most other people? Then it's probably a bad idea. It's gotta be like different and not boring. I think Mr. Beast's quote was like, if someone saw the first 2 or 3 seconds, you want their feeling to be like, I can't go to sleep tonight until I know what happened in that video. And if someone doesn't legitimately feel that, then it's probably not a good video. But going into some maybe other hook ideas, and we can kind of ping pong on some bad and some good, but like, I think another principle of bad ideas are like, are you selling and self-serving, or are you actually like depositing equity and giving a tip or something? As if you're anonymous, you don't even sell homes, you have nothing to gain from it, but you're just dropping this little nugget. That's kind of like another, like what makes a good video. Like, you ever see those videos where it's like, oh, I had a workout and now I need to refuel, and that's why I'm using protein X, Y, and Z 1, 2, 3, and then you're just like, oh my god,
ad.
You're like, this is like such an ad. Like, this is their agenda. This is them selling something. This is not how do I trust this for my benefit? So I think that's really important, to almost act as if you don't have a business that monetizes, act as if you don't sell homes or whatever it is, but still, if you had to like give information that people would want to watch because it's entertaining, like selling sunset, or because it's informational like someone else. But hook ideas, I think you could do like stories of like, here's how one person down the street bought another home with no income or something. So it's kind of like, how were they able to do that? So sometimes storytelling, or sort of like case study describing, or even non-real estate related at all. Like where I'm out here in San Diego, like the beer capital of the country, or craft beer breweries, like people will go bananas for that. And so like, even just being like, just doing a video of like, here are the 5 best places to get beer in San Diego is like the most heated debate that you could throw out on the internet in San Diego. So like, sometimes just doing something that has to do with local lifestyle, because I believe that's what real estate pros are selling. They're selling lifestyle. They're not necessarily selling a home. So sometimes just making content about lifestyle is one of the best ways to get people's attention. And then, 1 year, 2 years later, they raise their hand and say, you know what, we're actually moving, and you're the first person I thought of.
Yeah, I agree. And basically what you did with the first line is you said the entire video in one line, like what's in the video, like what to expect, but then you didn't give away the answer, so you left a little level of intrigue for people to keep watching. And I completely agree with you that the more you can kind of go a little up the funnel, quote unquote, like more community style, you're going to attract a wider subset of people that are going to watch the rest of your videos. So is that
Yeah.
something you kind of say, hey, is there a strategic, like, okay, let's do a little bit of this video, a little bit of this, a little bit of this? Do you think of it like that?
Really good question. I actually just I think short answer is no. Like my style is just leaned so much toward like brand and top of funnel and trying to get leverage earlier in the sales cycle. Like, I mean, we could definitely and probably should rap about this for a couple of minutes, but like I have over a decade experience at Zillow Group where I very hands-on have seen some of the top real estate teams across the country do scale their businesses through what's considered like lead generation or paid media, and so that has some positives, but it has some negative trade-offs where you know over time that has a diminishing return over time, those people you're sort of chasing. And so my belief on this other side here, just going back to our point, is of like inbound and video and that kind of stuff. I think it's the strongest lead source we can get, but you have to go earlier in the sales cycle. If they're already searching on Zillow, they're already like ready to like start making some swings. But if they're just living down the street and you can develop a legitimate connection with them, then yes, you might not get your sale for another 4 years, but you're intercepting the sale earlier in the process. And so that's to me has been one of the biggest opportunities in my strategy as of late.
Nice. And yeah, I want to touch on what you've learned from working with the top teams, but kind of going a little bit back to that and then to the psychology side. I guess what I meant is not necessarily going bottom of the funnel, but like different buckets. So let's say because you could talk about real estate, you could talk about neighborhoods, community, or like, for example, breaking down YouTube, you talk about things people would need to know when they're moving to an area or what it's like living to an area, what's coming soon. Like, do you kind of think through different buckets of like, hey, this is stuff that you should create content around? It shouldn't just be buying and selling in the market, or
Yes and yes, a little bit yes, mostly no. And so let me explain. Like I do think what it kind of reminds me of is like have you ever heard of like love
yeah,
languages, or
I have.
have you familiar with that? So like that in a non-romantic way, that's a real primary preferences of communication. So like your average viewers or your average video creator probably leans toward one of these three: feelings, facts, or fun. So you've either got maybe the more like feeler emotional type, you've got like the analytical numbers type, and then maybe more like the goofy, just wants to have a fun time type. And that represents like about 80% of us. And so trying to stay on track with your question here, I think yes, it's important to hit these different buckets so that you're hitting different flavors, different audiences, you're connecting with different people, you're creating a more diversified set of customers. However, I think like from just making 1,000 videos myself, hundreds with other people, like it's almost more effective, I think, to lean into the strengths of the creator and to almost have their vibe attract their tribe. And so like if you are just the goofy person and just like hates numbers or something, like it's hard to try and force the square through the circle hole. So like, is this a little bit of what you were saying with content types? Because like
Yeah.
I think there's like I think it is important. I think we want to be well rounded for a number of reasons, strategically, but I have just also seen that it can kind of almost slow down the creator versus like speed up the creator,
So
when you lean into the things that they do.
let's move into like speeding up and moving in the right direction. Like I know you talk about different things from like your investing advice. You talk about you've done videos all the way from like your kids to flow state to health.
Yeah.
There's been a wide
Yeah.
range. How do you walk people through, hey, these are the things that I should probably talk about?
Okay, really cool. So I've referred to them as pillars. I've heard people call them characters, but basically they're the themes in our human lives. Like I was just speaking to 200 agents the other night and was saying every single person in this room has a real estate brand. You technically offer the same real estate product and same real estate service to the consumer, but to the consumer, what's the actual one thing that differentiates all 200 people in the room? And it's the human element. It's their personal brand. Their story, their life lessons, their beliefs, their et cetera, like things that make them uniquely them. And so I actually feel like there's been this trend, and I surveyed, had over 100 agents submit that they agree with this by the numbers, that people want to see about 80%, 80-20, 80% who you are as a human. So I have a video business. I do a lot of educational content around how to get comfortable on video, how to make videos, video strategy, et cetera, et cetera. But like sometimes the 80% that's often created the actual like conversation to then want to do business, et cetera, has been like me nerding out about Tesla or videos about my 4 kids or some of these other human elements that create conversations. Because remember, we're first in the game of create a conversation and then you can create a customer. But it's just really been my belief that like going back to what speeds people up is like do the stuff that's like personally you and don't always make it so businessy.
So, just looking at that, it would be fair to say the 80% is who you are. That's what you create content around, and the 20% is what you do. And so you just spend about 20% around what you do, or is it different?
Correct. I mean, I would say I'm not even doing that allocation or that mix. That's kind of maybe what I'm gradually moving more and more toward. But that for the business side, because I do think that's an important strategy, right? Like people got to know what you do and what you offer in order to clearly want to work with you. Is I think when I just want to be clear on the what you do, because a lot of times people think that means do a commercial, do something that like just promotes your product or your service or offer. And there's so much underneath it, but I think an easy way to describe it is just teach your customer how to do their thing. And again, as if your product or service doesn't exist, but you still have to teach people out there, whether that means band-aiding solutions together or outsourcing or just DIY, but like educate your customer and then essentially charge them to implement with you. But that's my philosophy on the business content. So that way it's still like something people want to see. It doesn't feel like a TV commercial came on and now they got to scroll right past you, for the next one.
Yeah, it's that like pie in the sky. Everyone says give value. Essentially, what you said is giving value is the ability to transfer information for them to be able to do something as if they don't need you or as if they would never use you. It's like, here's exactly
Correct.
what to do, how to do it. You go do it. The reason they hire you is everything else. They like you, they trust you, and they don't want to implement themselves.
Completely. I love the how to approach. Maybe one other like pillar that I'll just add on that I has been new to me, but has been kind of working. But the old phrase of like the documenting versus creating,
Yep.
like we've heard that a trillion times. But I think a more clear way of like looking at it is like just behind the scenes reels. So I think if you're a realtor, like it's kind of like the old day in the life of like, walking out the door, grabbing my quick coffee. Here we're at this showing. What do you guys actually think of this kitchen? Oh my God, this is the best view in all of San Diego right here. And you're basically just stitching together a bunch of these like 2 or 3 second clips. And it's like a fun 20-second, 30-second, no longer than that, but like a mini vlog where they get to see what it's like behind the scenes, day in the life. And to me, that's been, I like that one because you're not selling, you're not pushing, you're not suggesting anything. You're truly just showing your life. And again, people want to create personal connection. They want to see what it's like to be, behind your eyes, and that's all it is. And like the reason I fell in love with that example is I was kind of hesitant, and I did that one for my own business, a video shoot. Here's what it's like behind the scenes doing a video shoot with this client, and I had like more shares on it than I've had in a long time from videos. But here's the crazy part, because with getting a little too into the weeds for Instagram, you can see public shares versus private shares. Meaning, if someone was trying to like share to their story to be like, "Yo, everyone, look at what Andrew's doing. It's really cool," which is nice. That's helpful promotion. But 90% of these were private shares, meaning someone DM'd them to a business partner and was like, "Yo, what do you actually think about working with Conor?" Or, "Yo, what do you actually think about doing this strategy?" Which means there was real value there. People
Yep.
like took it under the hood the way I wanted to. So it was, to me, a signal that people like that stuff behind the scenes, day in the life. It's another video idea to show your business, but not tell people to do business with you.
Yeah, it's the whole like show, not tell. It's like just show them. You don't have to go talk about it. So
Yeah.
I want to pivot a little bit because I think there's a lot of stuff that you know about that most people in sales or real estate specifically don't aren't always privy to because you've gotten to be around different people. And I think like notably, for example, like you've been in sales since 2009 and you started at Truly as an account exec, then you went from a team manager to a territory sales manager, and then you transitioned to Zillow, and we'll get into that in a second. But I was just curious from the sales side, moving from being the account person to then running a team, being accountable to a team. What'd you learn throughout that process?
Yeah. So I'm a I love this one because at heart, I'm a salesperson who's gradually been learning marketing over the years. And, um, and like one of the first things that comes to mind, and again, I'm just going to basically rob this from an author, Oren Clough, from the book Pitch Anything.
Great book.
But basically, like I used to always think it was like a logic debate. Like I thought sales came down to like who has the facts and who can sort of overwhelm the other one with the truth. And it just like was so the opposite in sales, like finding the reality that it's almost like an emotional dance or like communication game, chess match, so to say. So like getting into one of the takeaways from that book that's more tactical in sales is like in running with this point is like and this applies to business and sales as much as like anyone, so I've got a wife that I communicate, kids that I communicate with daily. Like this applies to communication. But I had always looked at, and this is common also for males, to try and like solve. They see a problem, we try and solve it. We see an objection, we try and hammer it with facts and truth or again logic debate. And sometimes the prospect or the customer or your significant other just wants to feel like you understand them. They just want to feel like they're being heard and understood. And there are real tactical ways to do that. So like one of my favorite phrases now when I think of sales, I think of labeling. So this phrase, it sounds like or it seems like, whether it's a prospect really mad about something, a current customer really mad about something, or my wife explaining a problem, rather than diving into what you suggest and what you want them to do, just like label their emotion. Like it seems like that's a really, really stressful situation, or sounds like that was really, really unfair with the way that got handled for you. And then even just like shutting up right there. Like, cause I used to, again, get into like solve it mode, like go into the next steps. But when the person, I think you can, like, I just dare whoever's listening to try this. Like you see their tension, you see their shoulders drop and they're like, wow, like, thank you for like, understanding me, like, and then they are open-minded to moving toward a solution or moving toward an offer or a product or a pitch. But until your prospect understands that, or until your prospect feels like you've demonstrated you understand them, then I don't think you have a shot. And so really, to me, that's like the most important thing in sales is like the emotional management, the emotional chess match.
I completely agree. And I heard it said differently Well, I've heard a lot of different ways, but like Amit was actually a good person because I was walking through the early time with like Amy and stuff, and I would always go, well, here's the solution. Like, I see the problem you're having. Here's the solution. And he was literally, he just
Yeah.
told me he used to do that too. And he just separated the two. And he said, you ask them, it's like, hey, are you looking for someone just to vent? Or are you looking for a solution?
Yeah.
And just that divide
Yeah.
of asking a simple question allows them to either have the space to vent where you don't have to sit there and try to problem solve, which is a lot of
Yeah.
times what they want.
Right.
And then taking it to another level, you basically said it's not just that. It's like, hey, allow them to like feel those emotions and then label it and allow them to understand it's okay to have those emotions.
Yeah, yeah, because I think the labeling part has just been an unlock for me. So that could be a whole conversation in itself, labeling.
So I was curious with all this experience of you being in sales and then seeing other people in sales, what did you either like think sales was like? What did you learn early on, like what sales wasn't, or like what failures did you learn throughout sales?
Yeah, there's a huge one I'm thinking of right now that just quoting, I believe originally from Naval Ravikant, but basically saying like, this might be sort of rough to hear for some of us, sales folks, but like we sell because we don't know how to market, and we market because we don't know how to build a product or a service. And so like I've realized, I guess, over time that like a good salesperson can probably sell anything, right? Like, there's all the old like snake oil, like ice to igloo or ice to Eskimo jokes. Like, but I think the biggest hack or realization or leverage for a salesperson, I think, is sounds like so simple, right? But to actually have a really good product or a really good service.
Yep.
Now, let's to make this more relevant real quick for some people that maybe have a commoditized product or service. Like I'm in video. Some people listening are in real estate. It's still one click above that in terms of the marketing. So remember I said we sell because we don't know how to market. So if we know how to market, then the selling part gets insanely easier. And so that's why I've been making kind of that move more and more into marketing is I to put this all in another way, for someone who has a commoditized service or product is your biggest leverage, your biggest opportunity in sales is your personal brand. I mean, this is great way of like coming full circle into why I started the company I started, why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. But I believe, building your personal brand can increase your conversion rate. It can increase your inbound prospects lead volume. It can do all these magical things in sales that we all look for, if we just solve some of the marketing part. So hopefully that was
Yeah.
useful. Kind of
No, it's good. It's like if you think about how much money has Chat GPT spent on marketing, how much on
yeah,
sales?
right.
Zero, because
Yeah,
they just build a
zero zero.
great product. And
Yeah, yeah.
I want to tie this.
But one line up, for someone that doesn't, because I do again have empathy for someone that has a commoditized product or service. Again, like I'm in video, very arguably like commoditized offer, real estate sales, commoditized offer. So I think it's the marketing that has to be the differentiator, if it's not the product or the service.
And kind of tying that all together, like since you worked at Zillow, you worked with a lot of teams as a strategic business advisor and a growth advisor. Like I could name drop some of the teams that you've been with. They've been anywhere from like 50 million, 30 million to 500 plus million. So you've seen the spectrum of teams and
Yeah.
leadership and just different levels of service. What have you seen separated just the regular team and the great teams, like the ones that separate themselves from everybody else?
Yeah, so I definitely feel grateful and lucky to have had that kind of unique path and window to some of these contexts that I worked and currently work with some that are doing 1 billion plus in production annually, or 1,000 units annually. And to me, the by far the biggest difference is like this relentless commitment to growing to another level versus like, I think everyone almost has this subconscious like level of where they get comfortable, so to speak. And so these other leaders, it's like they're never, almost in a frustrating way, it's like they're never satisfied. It's like you did 1 billion last year and you want to increase your goal by like another 40% this year, you know? So it's like why? It's like, how many homes can you actually sell? So like, but it's like this weird thing where, and I don't know if that's fostered as much as, you know, born with, that's a whole nother convo, but like they just have this, like they won't accept being stagnant. They have to grow to the next level.
This kind of comes a little all full circle where I noticed, for example, like the sign that's on the Notre Dame. I forget where it's the steps. It's play like a champion. Um,
Yeah, in the locker room.
and I know that kind of means a little bit to you. Is that something that, because one thing that I've noticed, for example, is like the successful people just somehow figure out a way to transfer that mindset into their kids. And they'll do little things that seem almost like small and meaningless, but each has an intentional purpose of how they're raising their kid to come up a different way. And me, just being the age I am at 29, I'm kind of on that doorstep, and
Oh, you're a young buck. Yeah.
I'm curious, what are you kind of doing, these little tiny micro things that change how you raise your kids to get them to that level, like to play like a champion?
Yeah, I really like this, and I hopefully don't offend too many of my millennial parents out there. But I think not being soft on them, not allowing things to be, you know, too easy. The toughest part as a parent, so I got 4 young children, is like we do want to give them the world. We want to protect them from the world in a way, in so many ways, like from protect them from danger, give them everything. But that sort of creates the opposite, and it did, you know, in my experience, like we said, some of those challenges I believe developed the strength that I feel like I have today. And so it's, I think the little things are, from whether it's, you know, I've got my girls learning jujitsu to every now and then trying to splash some ice cold water on them. Like I think little things like that, to all the way up to the big things. Like you know, if I were to pull them over here on screen today, like they would know, like the two most important things that I asked them as growing up are like, you know, learning to be happy, learning to take care of themselves. And so I think it is the little things like the jujitsu and splashing cold water and kind of having fun and, you know, letting them fall on, you know, in the dirt. But I think it's also the really big principles too, getting really, really clear to them about the couple things that matter. So that way they're not stressed on all the other bullshit, you know, out in the world that doesn't really matter.
And funny enough, you're not afraid to drop F-bombs or curse in front of your kids.
Yeah.
Some parents.
Yeah. That's a video that, you know, anyone listening can check out. But and that's a hook. That's a hook for a good video idea. But like I let my kids drop F-bombs, and you know, just to not leave a total cliffhanger for anyone listening right now. It's the point on this being that, like, I believe it's more valuable to teach them emotional intelligence and context and do that even through hard conversations than, and I think that serves them better long term than to, you know, avoid or oversimplify or tell them to never even use the F word because, you know, it's so bad. And then now they grow up and never understand context and meaning and you know, different things. So trying to keep that one high level, but it's tough. I think with kids and developing the mindset and stuff, here's a quote I'll end with. This is a good quote to kind of wrap with. So I'm going to try not to butcher this one too much, but I think parents, and I try to do this for myself, get angry and should not get angry as much about children not listening, not listening to what it is we want them to do, and instead we should be super worried that they're always watching what we're doing. So, live and lead by example.
I love that. It's true because you could say one thing, but if you're doing another, they're just going to follow what you do. So 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do want to ask one selfish question at the very before ending is
Yeah.
I do want to touch on that high level principle, like conveying and giving them emotional intelligence, growth. Like, is there something that you do with your kids consistently to like build that? Stuff that you've maybe taken away throughout sales or management or whatever, something maybe you gamify in their day-to-day life, like something that you're doing to build who they are, get them to think through trying to, and obviously they don't think I'm going to get emotionally intelligent or I'm going to have personal development. I'm just trying to see it from a lens of you. Is there something that you do?
Yeah. I mean, this is truly one of those, like, going back to that book I said earlier, infinite games of like, I almost feel so like humbled by even attempting to answer that question that I don't even know where to begin. Like it's one of those where like I think every parent is trying to figure out that thing, and where my mind actually goes is not because the kids feel this, the kids see this, but not putting so much pressure on ourselves as parents or on the kids to get to that whatever level you were just describing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Of like is that A+ level? Is that B-? What, like whatever we were just describing, trying to just almost remove any of that pressure. Because I think a lot of these things will come naturally if they just pay attention to who we are and if we are those types of people. But I think where it kind of goes off the path is like, and I'm speaking from experience of going off the path with this, is like when I put too much pressure on them being more emotionally intelligent, I put too much pressure on me having more quality time with them, a lot of these things, and I think that ends up being more hurtful than helpful. So, where my mind goes is just asking those questions is the right path for whatever parent is listening. And just keep playing that infinite game and don't overjudge and just show up every day with love.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. Like you and I could ramble so hard about like pressure, putting too much on our kids, because like we can instill that in ourselves secondhand just by like looking at our grandfathers, what they've achieved, our fathers, what mothers, grandmothers, what they've achieved, and have this level of like, we need to achieve the same thing and put all this pressure, and it could be good, it could be bad. Mm-hmm. But that's probably a whole conversation in itself.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, we should definitely do a part 2 parenting convo. It's a topic I'm always passionate about. So, like you said, you'll continue to see content, from me.
Nice.
On the topic.
So, where could people follow you? Where are you most active?
I should be accessible everywhere. I'm quickest to respond on Instagram, but I hang out on like LinkedIn and other places now and then. But Instagram is where I recommend. And then yeah, if just on the topic of videos, last thing I'll say in there, anyone that does connect with me on the link at the top there, I've got a free 21 downloads for hook ideas. So if someone's like, nice, I need hooks, I need ideas, like there's 21 hooks there for free that people can run with, start making videos. Nice.
And that's super helpful because I know I have just it's easier to pull from something than it is to pull from nothing, so it's definitely helpful. I just want to thank you for your time and honor it and everything that you've given. Man. You just convey that Gary V type of give value personality. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Likewise, dude. I've got all the respect in the world for what you've done, and like it was so cool to have crossed paths with you just a couple of years ago, and I feel like you and I are both just getting started. So cheers, man.